So what do we mean by KSA, and why is that so important in a little bit greater detail here? Because that's what's going to match up on that job description when employers are hiring for and what you bring to the table, so to speak. So if we look at each section, let's start with K, knowledge, right? And so knowledge is focusing on your understanding of concepts. It's really more theoretical and less practical. It might be related to IQ or intelligence quotient. It might be related to your general knowledge around things like knowledge of the industry, knowledge of certain techniques, or just knowledge of what's involved. Let's say if you're a web developer around coding or programming, or maybe what web design might look like. Just from a larger theoretical knowledge. A theoretical knowledge like in web design that your web page is going to do. It serves a purpose, right? It might be trying to convert people to buy a product, for example, around e-commerce, and that's the general theory. Skills is really related to how do you apply that theoretical knowledge. It's the capabilities or proficiencies developed through training or your own hands-on experience. So if we look at that web design example again, maybe conceptually, this is how I'd like a web page to look at. Maybe in this particular problem you're trying to solve, you want a single web page. It's a single page that's going to lead to conversion. It's not going to have multiple pages, not a full website, a single page web conversion as an example. And then the skills are, how do you make that happen? Do you have coding skills, just web development skills, knowledge of how to manipulate images on a web page or integrating video, whatever it might be. Those are the skills that you bring. And the abilities are your innate traits or talents that a person brings to a task or a situation. These are the kind of things that you're just kind of good at. So anybody ever say to you, but you're really just good at that, or you really are, those kind of things. Or you just know, like, yeah, this comes naturally to me. This is an innate talent or trait. Maybe somebody like who likes public speaking or is a good public speaker. For many of those folks, it just seems natural to them, where most people really struggle with public speaking, and it's very fearful for them, and that's very, very understandable, without a doubt. But for some folks, you look at them and like, boy, they're pretty good at that, and they might have some innate talent or trait. Same thing with the web design example. They might have that innate trait or talent of really seeing, from a conceptual and skill part, they just can put it together quickly, and maybe they can really communicate the benefits of doing a website a certain way. Maybe it's interpersonal communication, maybe almost like selling or persuasiveness, that you're persuading somebody. So knowledge, skills, and abilities kind of form that total package of who you are. So let's say maybe you want to get a job in, let's say, web development working for a company. You could take that those broad knowledge theory, apply your skills to put it all together practically, and then you have that innate ability maybe to communicate, for example, why they should go with this web design versus another type of web design, and that's an innate ability. And that's just one small example of that. You can now, if you think about knowledge, skills, and abilities, there's infinite numbers of combinations of every individual person. Just like every individual person has a unique fingerprint, for example, every single person has their own basket of knowledge, skills, and abilities. You can almost think of them as individual buckets: a bucket of knowledge, a bucket of skills, and a bucket of abilities. And in those buckets are what makes up you. And now as a job employer, as a hiring manager, I'm looking to see what that person's bringing with them in terms of their buckets of knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then how does that fit? And how does that fit with my company? But also, how does that match up with my job needs? So so if I'm hiring for a particular position, I want to make sure that they might have some basic skills they could do, like using Microsoft Excel, spreadsheets, whatever. But maybe I'm looking also for some advanced skills. Maybe I'm running a nuclear power plant. Well, somebody with that broad knowledge of nuclear physics might be very important, and the innate skills to maybe run the board as far as at the power plant, and maybe an ability to work under pressure. So that would be another good example of that, how they all work together. And you want to think about your knowledge, skills, and abilities and how you can communicate those to the employer so they can help you go through the process. And when I say communication, that could be in written communication, whether it's on a job application, a resume, on your LinkedIn profile, or verbal communication like through an interview. So as you move through the process, you're bringing your knowledge, skills, and abilities with you, because that's what you're going to be really using on the job. And that's what, a big part of what employers are hiring for, of course. So, let's take a look now in the next lesson at the number one thing that every company hires for, and it might be a little different than what you think.